The US economy is booming, they say. Record profits, soaring stock market, the American dream alive and well, except not really.
We're drowning in debt, priced out of the housing market, and staring down the barrel of a future that feels anything but bright.
Unemployment is down, but wages have barely budged for millennials and Gen Z. We're working longer hours, taking on multiple jobs, and still struggling to make ends meet.
Something is fundamentally broken. We're told to work hard, get an education, and play by the rules. But somewhere along the line, the rules changed.
The American dream, the one our parents and grandparents aspired to, feels increasingly out of reach. It's time to face a harsh reality. The current economic system is failing young Americans.
The question is, are we going to stand by and let it happen, or are we going to demand a better future?
Remember the days when owning a home was a realistic goal? For young people today, the housing market feels like a cruel joke.
So what's driving this housing madness? Well, for starters, we're not building enough homes. NIMBYism, zoning laws, and bureaucratic red tape are all conspiring to keep housing supply low, which artificially inflates prices.
Wall Street has gotten in on the action, with private equity firms buying up single-family homes and turning them into rentals.
They're not doing this out of the goodness of their hearts, they're doing it to make a profit. And who pays the price? That's right, renters, young people who are already struggling to save for a down payment.
The result? A generation priced out of homeownership, stuck in a cycle of renting that makes it nearly impossible to build wealth. We're being squeezed from all sides, and it's time for a serious conversation about how to fix this broken system. The American dream is built on the idea that anyone, regardless of their background, can achieve success through hard work and determination. But let's be real, the playing field is far from level.
Here's the deal. Wealth isn't just about how much money you make, it's about generational wealth, the assets and advantages passed down from one generation to the next.
For many young people, particularly those from marginalized communities, generational wealth is a myth. We're starting from scratch, saddled with student debt and facing a system rigged against us.
Meanwhile, the wealthy are getting wealthier, passing down their advantages to their children and widening the gap even further. This isn't just unfair, it's economically unsustainable.
When wealth is concentrated in the hands of a few, it stifles innovation, limits opportunity, and creates a system where the rich get richer, and everyone else is left scrambling for scraps.
We need to start talking about wealth inequality, not just income inequality. Because until we address the root causes of this growing divide, the American dream will remain a distant fantasy for far too many. We're told that education is the key to success. Go to college, get a degree, and the world will be your oyster. Except that's not exactly how it works anymore, is it?
The cost of college has skyrocketed, leaving millions of young people with mountains of debt and a diploma that might not even guarantee a decent job.
College costs have risen at a rate far outpacing inflation, driven by administrative bloat, lavish amenities, and a culture that prioritizes prestige over affordability.
Meanwhile, state funding for public universities has plummeted, shifting the burden onto students and their families. The result? A generation forced to take on crippling debt just to get a college degree.
We're talking about loans that can take decades to pay off, delaying homeownership, marriage, and even having children. This isn't just a personal finance issue, it's a national crisis. Imagine starting your adult life with a mountain of debt hanging over your head. Not credit card debt, not a car loan, but student loan debt, the kind that follows you around like a bad shadow.
We're talking about doctors, teachers, nurses, the backbone of our society, struggling to make ends meet because of their student loan payments. They're putting off buying homes, starting families, and pursuing their dreams because they're drowning in debt.
The student loan system is broken. It's designed to trap borrowers in a cycle of debt with high interest rates and limited repayment options.
This isn't just bad for borrowers, it's bad for the entire economy. When young people are saddled with debt, they have less money to spend, save, and invest. That means less economic growth, less innovation, and a weaker future for everyone.
It's time for bold action to address the student loan crisis. We need to forgive some debt, lower interest rates, and make college more affordable in the first place. Our future depends on it. We live in a culture of instant gratification. Buy now, pay later, treat yourself, you deserve it. But all that spending comes at a cost, and young people are racking up credit card debt at an alarming rate.
It's not hard to see why. Wages are stagnant, the cost of living is rising, and it's easy to fall into the trap of using credit cards to make ends meet. But this cycle of debt is unsustainable.
The problem is compounded by predatory lending practices. Think payday loans, title loans, and other high-interest products designed to trap people in a cycle of debt. These lenders prey on the vulnerable, particularly those in low-income communities, making a bad situation even worse.
We need to break free from this culture of consumerism and debt. That means living within our means, saving for the future, and rejecting the idea that happiness can be found at the bottom of a shopping cart. It also means holding predatory lenders accountable and creating a financial system that works for everyone, not just those at the top. The U.S. national debt is approaching $33 trillion. That's trillion with a T. It's a number so large it's hard to even comprehend. This debt has real consequences, and young people will be stuck footing the bill.
Every year the government spends more than it takes in. That's called a budget deficit, and when those deficits pile up, they turn into a mountain of debt.
When there's a lot of debt, investors get nervous. They worry the government won't pay back its loans, so they demand higher interest rates. Higher rates make it more expensive to borrow, which means less money for education, infrastructure, and paying down the debt.
This is a vicious cycle, and it's only going to get worse. We need serious conversations about responsible spending and tax reform. Our economic future depends on it.
So we've established that the national debt is a problem. But where is all that money going? It's a fair question.
Government spending is complex, but here are key areas to consider.
First up, defense spending. The U.S. spends more on defense than any other country. Do we need to spend more than the next 10 countries combined?
Then there's Social Security and Medicare. Vital programs, but facing funding challenges.
And billions spent on subsidies for various industries. Are they creating jobs or just lining pockets? Young people are facing an economic crisis, but our elected officials don't seem to be listening. Sure, they talk a good game about caring about the future, but their actions tell a different story.
It often feels like they're more interested in scoring political points than actually solving problems. Take climate change, for example. Young people are going to bear the brunt of the climate crisis, but too many politicians are still denying the science or dragging their feet on taking meaningful action. They're more concerned with protecting the profits of fossil fuel companies than protecting the planet for future generations.
Or how about affordable housing? We're in the midst of a housing crisis, but instead of investing in affordable housing solutions, many politicians are more interested in giving tax breaks to wealthy developers. They're not feeling the pain of rising rents and mortgage payments, so they're not motivated to do anything about it.
And let's not forget about student loan debt. Millions of young people are drowning in debt, but instead of offering real relief, many politicians are more interested in playing political games and blaming the victims. They're out of touch with the struggles of everyday Americans, and it shows.
The economic challenges facing young Americans are real, and they're not going away on their own. If we continue down this path of inaction, the consequences will be dire, not just for young people, but for the entire country.
Imagine a future where the American dream is truly out of reach for most people. A future where the middle class continues to shrink, where social mobility is a distant memory, and where economic inequality reigns supreme. This isn't a dystopian fantasy. It's a very real possibility if we don't change course.
The consequences of inaction are far-reaching. We're talking about a weaker economy, a less competitive workforce, and a decline in innovation and entrepreneurship. We're talking about a society that's more divided, less just, and less optimistic about the future.
We can't afford to let this happen. We need to wake up, speak out, and demand better from our elected officials. The future of our country, our economy, and our democracy depends on it. The challenges facing young Americans are daunting, but they're not insurmountable. We have the power to change course, to create a more just and equitable future for ourselves and for generations to come.
Get involved in the political process. Register to vote, make your voice heard, and hold your elected officials accountable.
It's not just about electing the right people. It's about changing the system itself. Demand campaign finance reform to get big money out of politics.
This isn't a partisan issue. It's about our collective future. We need to come together across party lines to build a movement for change.
The challenges are real, but so is our potential. Let's get to work.